Good morning. Good morning and happy Sunday, YouTube family. I'm Reverend Wendy Hamilton with the Community of Compassion, and I am so grateful, as usual, that you all join me for this week's Spirit Talk. Uh, First, to start off with, I always like to thank you. I always like to thank you for tuning in. I like to thank you for stopping by throughout the week and checking out the posting and offering your comments of support and gratitude. I just, never want to go a week without acknowledging it with that and letting you know how much that means to me and how important it is to me. So thank you so much for that. Continue to do that. Continue to click and like and subscribe and share and all the things that will help get the word out. Because again, I've said this before and I'll say it again. For me, this is about touching the people who need to be uplifted, to be motivated, to be inspired, to be heard. It doesn't matter how many people tune in for me. This is about putting the message out into the world and believing that those who need it will be able to access it. So I am very grateful, although I am too grateful for the fact that I do have 204 subscribers now. Woo! So I'm moving up in the world. I'm very excited about that. But again, it just really touches my heart that any of you tune in and find yourselves blessed in some way or fashion with this broadcast. So that being said, this is our spirit talk for this week. And today's talk is one that really was sparked by an interview that I did yesterday with one of our podcast groups that are affiliated with the Yang Gang. I really enjoyed talking with Let's Fix America. That was the name of the group. And I believe the interview will be posted this week on Tuesday. But we got into a little bit of talking about some of the spiritual ways and methods that we can go about helping at this critical time in our nation. And it's sort of spiraled into a conversation about how do we heal and how to begin healing ourselves, because we've been through so much trauma and we're still going through it. We're still experiencing the pandemic and financial crises and housing crisis and natural disasters. And like all of those things are still in the midst of us, in addition to what's happening politically in our world and all of the divisiveness. So it's sort of pain upon trauma. But at some point, we are going to need to start the process for healing and how to heal. If we don't begin to turn that corner, it will continue to feel more and more unlikely that we can reach it. So I want to begin that conversation today to start talking about ways in which we can begin to heal, not only to heal ourselves, but to heal this nation. I had posted something earlier. Healing starts from within. When we begin to heal ourselves from within, we become healed people. Hurt people hurt people. Healed people heal people. So the more that we invest in our own personal healing and taking care of ourselves, the better then collectively we will be as a group and as a nation. And healed nations heal the world. So today I just want to spend some time talking a little bit about ways that we can begin to start the process of our own healing in the midst even of all of this pain, because it is important to multitask. There's not a place where we stop and say, okay, the pain is over, now we start healing. Unfortunately, that's not how the world works. We actually have to start healing ourselves even in the midst of the pain. Healing is a journey. It is not a destination. So in that regard, it's ongoing and it starts. And if you haven't started yet, I want you to start today. One thing that I want to share that will kind of get us started on some of the steps and places that we can go in our own healing is to put this out there and to say this. We seem to be at one another's throats. We seem to be very, very angry. There's just this undercurrent of anger, and rightfully so, that's happening in our world. But what I don't think that some people often realize is that a large portion of anger is actually unprocessed grief. A lot of anger that we hold, that we project, that we feel is actually unresolved grief. And because of that, it causes us to miss out on opportunities to address what it is that's really making us so mad. So when we recognize that a lot of what we're angry and fearful and hurt about is about some unresolved and unprocessed grief that we have, now we can start being honest about ways in which to address that. Healing requires effort on our part individually as well as collectively. When we start on the pathway to healing ourselves, we become healed people and we can turn around and in turn help others. Once we recognize that we're in pain and that it's unprocessed grief, we can then start to look at what is causing that grief. So, as a nation, I would venture to say that some of our unprocessed and unresolved grief right now is the fact that we've lost over 200,000 Americans to this pandemic. That is unfathomable. That is hard to process. And I don't think we've fully given ourselves time to acknowledge that. So that's some of what's underlying the divisiveness and the pain that we see in our nation that's spilling out into the streets. Last weekend, I got an opportunity to visit a COVID-19 memorial project. So on the National Mall here in DC, a group of interested citizens felt that it was important that we reflect symbolically the number of American lives that have been lost to COVID. So what they did was they took American flags, small American flags, and they planted them as an installation right in front of the Washington Monument. They planted 20,000 flags, 20,000. And that's only 10% of the number of people that we have lost in this country, being 200,000 in the last 6 months. When I tell you that I wanted to go down there and just to see it, but ultimately to pay my respects as well, because there's plenty of people represented in those flags that I know personally. One of my church members passed away as a result of COVID sweeping through his assisted living facility. And so I felt like in many ways, I went down there to let Herbert know, I'm here, Herb, I'm here. But just walking up on the installation itself was it was foreboding. It was this feeling of, oh my goodness, look at how many bodies this represents. It was almost like walking up on 20,000 grave sites. And so you just kind of had to just stand there and take it all in. And it dawned on me that we have not had a national day of mourning or acknowledgement or grieving or a moment of silence or anything to acknowledge that pain. And on a national level, people are doing things collectively and individually, even like with this monument project being put out there. But as a nation, we haven't had a chance to acknowledge that together. And so I believe that is some of our unresolved pain that is causing us to be so angry and to lash out at each other. It's so important that we begin to acknowledge what our pain truly is so that we can start to address it. Healing starts with recognition. It starts with saying, this is what's hurting me. This is what's bothering me. This is what's keeping me up at night. This is what is preventing me from feeling whole and well. Naming a thing is the start and the recognition and the pathway to healing. So what is it? What is it, friends, today? Let's just sit for a moment here and think about what is at the core of our present pain. For you individually, what is it that is causing you to feel like you just don't feel as whole as you normally do? And whatever that thing is that comes up for you, acknowledge that And please don't assign any value to it, that it's right or wrong, that it's bad or it's good. It just is. If you are angry about the state of your finances, be angry. Acknowledge that that's what it is, that you feel unstable because you've never been in a position where you felt like you had to perhaps reach out and ask people for assistance. That's very real. Acknowledge what that is, but also recognize that it's also tied to the grief of losing your way of life. Your way of functioning, that the way that you have conducted yourself maybe might be challenged right now due to your financial crisis. So, the very first step on the pathway to healing is acknowledging what it is in you that needs to be healed. What is broken so that we can begin to repair it. Once you do that, the next steps, of course, are then to begin to address it, particularly with ourselves through radical self care. Now, you guys know I'm a proponent of that and talk about how important it is for us to take care of ourselves. And I think that one of the most effective and one of the strongest ways to take care of ourselves is to find a healthy support system. Find a support system who you can talk to, who you can vent with, who you can pray with, who can look at you and sit with you and honor your pain without requiring that you follow a particular formula to address it. Sometimes what we call in ministry the ministry of presence can be an invitation to healing. Sometimes people don't want to hear it's going to be better, everything's going to be fine, it's going to work out. Some people just need you to come and sit with them and validate their pain. So, ministry of presence is a way for you to begin to feel supported and find people in your life who are willing to do that, non judgmental, safe people who allow you to express what's going on and invite you to your own healing process. Now, those self care activities that you might decide to participate in include, as a spiritual person, prayer, meditation, of course, gardening, being a part of a larger group, music is such a refuge for me. I don't know about you, but there are times where I can just put on a really good song and it will take me away. It will heal me in ways that other things and other activities cannot. So perhaps music, and those of you who are musicians, maybe picking up your guitar or picking up your instrument, whatever that might may be helpful in minimizing some of the pain that you might be feeling. It can be an outlet. Gardening for some people, being out in nature, water, being near water is incredibly healing for me, and so others have found that as well. I don't care if it's a river, a lake, a pond, but especially the ocean can have a way of just reviving and rejuvenating and bringing me back to a place of peace. So make sure that you are surrounding yourself with self-care activities and also healthy people. That leads me to my third sort of step towards healing. Some of us are having difficulty healing because of the people who are around us and in our lives. They might be preventing us from moving toward a healthy pathway. And when I say that, there are people who can be well intentioned and well meaning, but however, they might be hindering your progress and hindering your healing process. And so I ask you to lovingly take that into consideration, to survey your circle and find out, are the people in your circle helping you or hindering you? And that does not mean that they are bad people. And again, they may mean well, but at the same time, if they are not contributing to your healing, it may be time for you to reduce the amount of influence those particular people have in your lives. I am not suggesting cancel. There's a lot of talk out here about cancel culture. And sometimes it's not about canceling someone, it's about honoring my own boundary. It's not saying that I'm canceling you. It's saying that my relationship with you is not helpful to my healing progress. And therefore, I am going to enforce my own self care boundary to take care of myself, not just simply to reject you. So we have to be careful when we are dealing, particularly with people who exhibit toxic behavior. And that can be across a different scale. So with toxic behavior, we will erect boundaries. Toxic people will think that you're holding a grudge when you're really just honoring your boundary. So self-care, radical self-care involves being honest with yourself. And some of those people are in our families. And that can be an unfortunate feeling, but at the same time, we have to be honest in order if we want the fullness of our healing to take effect. And so surround yourself with people who are for you, not people who are going to be against you. That is so important as a pathway to healing. So healing involves recognizing what's going on, naming what's going on, identifying it, and then setting up a system of support for you to help to begin the process, the healing journey, but then also doing things for yourself that will promote your own healing. So self-care is as important as a healthy support system. And then the final thing I would like to share as a way to begin to heal is also sort of a spiritual practice that is talked about across different disciplines, and that's the discipline of surrendering, of letting go of the things that we cannot control and focusing on the things that we can. When we surrender ourselves, whether that be to God or to knowing or having to know what outcomes are going to be, we free ourselves to be able to heal on our own time and in our own way. Don't ever say to someone, it's been over, get over it, or move on. That's not helpful. People need to be able to move at their own pace and within their own experience of grace. So when you surrender, you're saying, I am human and I recognize that I can't do everything on my own. I recognize that I am not always going to be perfect, nor are situations that I find myself in going to be perfect, but I am going to do whatever I can within my power to make myself better and to feel more whole. And to do that, you first have to surrender to this notion that somehow you have to be perfect or that you have to be healed by a certain time. It's a journey, it's not a destination. Reward yourself for the small steps that you're able to take. Reward yourself on those days when you feel really good. Reward yourself when you stand up and make a decision for yourself that you know is lending to healthy outcomes for you. So surrender, let it go. I can change the things that I can, and I need wisdom to know about the things that I cannot change so that I do not put pressure on myself, but rather put myself in situations where my healing is fostered. And so let me just encourage you today how to heal one step at a time, one day at a time, one moment at a time, one crisis at a time. Give yourself some space. Give yourself some grace. The more that we do this individually, it models it for people around us. And then it can begin to happen collectively. Healed people heal people. And then all of these people being healed collectively as a nation can heal the world. So that's my encouragement for you all today. I hope that this was helpful, and I hope that you will share it, because we all need to be reminded of how powerful healing can be. Thank you, as always, for joining me every week. Good morning. Yes, I see you there. Good morning, Linda. So glad that you joined me. And Jen, you hold me down. You're my ride or die, sis, and I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining in, and I look forward to speaking and seeing you next week. It's my birthday next weekend, so we'll see what message I have for you next week. Until then, take care. Have a great Sunday.